Okay, so I did some Googling. I accidentally landed on something earlier, actually. It turns out some of these new deities in Lost Omens and Impossible Lands aren't exactly new. Turns out, in the back of Adventure Paths, there's more expanded lore and stuff. Turns out that's why I started BDG in the first place, to dig into the back of those books and be like, oh, that's real fucking cool. Let's make videos about it. So, today, welcome back to Wednesday Afternoon Worship. We are diving into Belly of the Black Whale from Agents of Edgewatch to talk about the Chalice of Amrit, her fall from grace. If you're liking what you see, and like, subscribe, ding the bell. It's too early in the morning to crack my knuckles, apparently. Stay caught up on all your stuff for now. Let's dive in. Okie dokie, so Ravithra was printed in Lost Omens and Impossible Lands as well. You can follow this card right up here for things like the Deity's Edicts and Anathema and so on. We already did that. Those of you who caught that video, or who don't want to already know, that Ravithra was once in control of a very powerful artifact known as the Chalice of Amrit, and then she lost it, and it's kind of her whole thing to regain this artifact. That Chalice of Amrit thing, a chalice whose waters would display all the potentialities of a creature's soul, she never once looked into it, just watched over it. Even while other titans were warring with one another, she held to her duties. Sticking to her guns like this earned her a lot of devotion and a lot of friends. One of them was Vazagati, who we already know if we read Lost Omens and Impossible Lands, the being who would spell Ravithra's undoing. But we don't know the how. We know petty mortal traits. Saying it that way makes it so much less personal than I'm just gonna borrow this from the Wikipedia. However, the petty Vazagati craved the Chalice of Amrit and plotted against Ravithra, filling her with self-doubt whether her understanding of her role was sufficient to perform it well. Eventually, Ravithra succumbed to her curiosity and decided to look into the Chalice of Amrit to discern her place. And when she looked, that's when Vazagati strangled her, cut her head off, and spilled the waters of the chalice. Those spilling waters drowned all of Ravithra's allies, and then after severing her head, she filled the chalice with literally the deity's blood. Despite being beheaded, Ravithra lived, regrew a new body, the serpentine one you see here. But that doesn't mean beheading a god doesn't do a bunch of crazy shit, like birthing Nalanvati, Ravithra's daughter. Man, I wish this was pointed to somewhere in the book where I thought that Ravithra was new. I feel like I have missed my due diligence, and this is also really fucking cool. Inside of you are two wolves. Anyway, after reforming, Ravithra changed. Coming back from the dead is an ordeal, and if you ask Sukiyo, yeah, no, you're gonna become a different person afterwards. After losing all that power, Ravithra wanted to get that power back. A very single-minded thing, not able to let go of the past, such that she began to believe that she was immune to the consequences of doing bad things, because it was in the name of the greater good. Meanwhile, on Galarian, the timeline begins to flow into the Age of Serpents, and this single-minded will was flowed down into Ravithra's Naga servants. But this power that flowed down to them allowed them to build that empire that we talked about when we were talking about the Nagas. Here's a card really quickly. Y'all know what it is. The Naga were all tasked with recovering the chalice while sticking to the balance of karma without question. Do as I say, not as I do, but get me my shit back, basically. And over time, Ravithra learned that the chalice was hidden on the highest mountain on Vudra, a mountain so high that the Nagas just straight up couldn't get up there. Why this is, I have no idea. Guardian Nagas can cast Airwalk, Spirit Naga can cast Fly. All of these Naga are at the very top of a very powerful empire at this point in time, so like they probably have a wizard friend. The implications of the biggest mountain on Vudra being inaccessible to folks that should definitely have access to it means really interesting dungeon. Don't mind me, I'm writing some homebrew for a campaign I'll never run. Be right back. Anyway, around it, when Ravithra figured out that's where the chalice was and that her servants couldn't get there, she asked a Garuda, the first of them, Sudachala. Now, if we go look at the Garuda's stat block, you see this bit about how a long time ago, the very first Garuda was enslaved by the Serpent Queen, who must be Ravithra. Well, Ravithra promised to release Sudachala's mom if the chalice could be returned to the Nagas without looking in it or without drinking from it. And that's where you get the part in here about how very great long quest with many dangers, but at this point in time, Ravithra has become an entirely too corrupt being to have something like this, right? When you're granted powers by people like the Akashic Guru or the Manad, there's a certain extraplanar impartiality that at this point is now just gone from Ravithra. So down steps Gruhasta, who let Sudachala know, hey, if you do this, the Naga are going to become immortal. There are a lot of really bad implications. Please do not. The pair worked together to present an illusion not of this most powerful thing, which obviously Ravithra can see through. There are a lot of big tells with those particular kinds of things. Again, the text says it the best. As Sudachala did not look into the chalice and could not replicate what he did not see, Ravithra immediately discerned the false chalice's true nature, but unfortunately the Naga had already sipped from it. As they bit into the long grasses beneath the water, the Naga's tongues split and they quickly fled in pain and rage. Soon after, the Naga Empire fell, which leaves Ravithra waiting in Nagaloka, floating on the astral plane, broken off from Nirvana, with her fallen eons, the fearful ones, and the souls of her most faithful, coiled around the pedestal that once held the chalice, waiting